welcome to New Wave Global. You are watching Unraveled with Marvi Sirmed. Our focus today is the legacy of Justice DY Chandrachud, the recently retired Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of India, and a figure who has shaped the recent history of India's judiciary in profound yet controversial ways. His tenure as Chief Justice brought both praise and criticism, but more importantly, it raised serious concerns about judicial independence, a cornerstone of any democracy. An independent judiciary is vital in holding those in power accountable, protecting constitutional values, and ensuring justice for all citizens, especially in a complex democracy like India. When judicial independence is compromised, the entire democratic structure is at risk. As we explore Justice Chandrachud's legacy, we will examine whether his leadership upheld these principles or allowed them to be diluted under political influence. His perceived proximity to the Modi government, exemplified by hosting the Prime Minister for Ganesh Puja at his residence, sparked accusations of undermining judicial independence. Critics pointed to his use of master of the roster powers, alleging politically sensitive cases were disproportionately assigned to judges known to favor the ruling BJP, raising concerns about bench fixing. His judgments in high profile cases such as the Maharashtra political crisis and the Delhi administrative power tussle were criticized for their lack of decisive resolutions, often seen as indirectly benefiting the government. Civil society expressed dismay over his failure to tackle the growing backlog of cases and delays in crucial judicial appointments, which appeared to reflect acquiescence to executive pressure. Moreover, his symbolic gestures, such as unveiling a new Lady Justice statue without a blindfold, were seen as hollow attempts to project progressiveness, while substantive issues like protecting human rights and resisting government's outreach were left unaddressed. These critiques collectively cast a shadow over his legacy as Chief Justice. In today's show, we will explore this entire spectrum of criticism on the former Chief Justice, which is based on a comprehensive and highly critical report by a young journalist, Mr. Saurav Das, published by the Caravan magazine last month. The report is titled Performative Justice, the Equivocation of DY Chandrachud, and spans over almost a couple of dozen pages. The report details the controversial tenure of DY Chandrachud and examines a glaring contradiction. That is, Chandrachud's public persona as a liberal, progressive jurist committed to judicial independence and constitutional values versus his actions, which critics argue reflect a judiciary increasingly submissive to executive power. From questionable case assignments to symbolic gestures and judgments that conveniently aligned with government interests, the report is a damning assessment of his legacy. Let's unravel this together. The article paints Chandrachud as an erudite judge capable of nuanced legal arguments, but unwilling to confront political power. His judgments often began with idealistic rhetoric, but their conclusions frequently favored the government. A prime example is the 2019 Ram Janmabhoomi case, where the court acknowledged historical injustices but handed the disputed land for constructing a Hindu temple, a ruling many viewed as aligning with the BJP's ideological agenda. In fact, during his tenure's last few days, Chandrachud, while speaking at a public platform, claimed that he sought guidance from the deity before writing this judgment, and that the deity had given him divine guidance in a dream, through a dream. So, so much for liberalism, secularism, and blind justice. Justice Chandrachud's tenure is criticized for eroding the judiciary's independence. His actions, such as hosting PM Modi for Ganesh Puja were seen as a stark departure from his earlier stance of keeping politics and the judiciary separate. Critics argue that this public display, combined with his reluctance to hold the executive accountable in politically sensitive cases, sent troubling signals about judicial impartiality. The article outlines how Chandrachud's use of master of the roster powers raised serious questions. Politically sensitive cases were often assigned to junior judges perceived to align with the government, BJP led government. This practice, critics argue, undermined the public trust and exposed the judiciary to the allegations of bias. Justice Chandrachud's tenure featured symbolic gestures, such as unveiling a new Lady of Justice statue without blindfold to convey progressiveness and probably a departure from the colonial past also. However, his critics point out that these gestures often masked an unwillingness to address deeper systemic issues, such as delays in judicial appointments and rising executive influence over the Collegium system. The article also details several cases where Chandrachud's judgments appeared progressive on the surface, but ultimately failed to challenge power structure. For example, the Maharashtra political crisis judgment, it acknowledged the legality of the governor's actions, but did little to reverse the BJP aligned government's takeover. Similarly, his ruling on Delhi's administrative powers upheld the Kejriwal government's rights, but included a loophole that allowed the union government, BJP led union government, to bypass the decision through new legislation. More importantly, the Masjid case. More importantly, the Gyanvapi Masjid case. The former Chief Justice allowed a controversial scientific survey to determine whether a Hindu temple existed beneath the mosque. This decision, critics argue, undermined the Places of Worship Act 1991, which seeks to preserve the religious character of sites as they were on August 15, 1947. The judgment was seen as a departure from the Act's intent, effectively reopening historical religious disputes. By framing the survey as a matter of faith rather than law, the ruling has emboldened the demands for similar assessments at other mosques, fueling communal tensions and raising concerns about the judiciary's role in safeguarding India's secularism. Chandrachud's leadership of the Collegium is criticized for being overly accommodating to the executive by allowing the government significant influence over judicial appointments and transfers. His tenure set a precedent that may weaken the judiciary's independence for years to come. The article leaves us with a sobering view of Chandrachud's legacy. It questions whether the judiciary under his leadership truly served as a check on power or whether it compromised its independence in favor of optics and political convenience. Chandrachud's tenure, with its mix of brilliance and contradictions, serves as a crucial case study for the challenges facing India's democracy today. This also underscores profound concerns about judicial independence in India, particularly the judiciary's vulnerability to executive influence and its struggle to balance constitutional ideals with political realities. The erosion of separation of powers, politicization of judicial appointments, and selective handling of politically sensitive cases mirror challenges faced by judiciaries across South Asia, including Pakistan and Bangladesh. In Pakistan, for example, the judiciary has often been criticized for oscillating between enabling military regimes and overreaching into the executive matters. Similarly, in Bangladesh, allegations of executive interference and a judiciary inclined to favor ruling parties reflect the broader regional trend of judicial institutions being co opted or pressured by dominant political powers. Chandrachud's tenure serves as a stark reminder of how institutional independence, when compromised, not only weakens public trust but also destabilizes the delicate democratic balance that these courts are meant to uphold. This shared reality demands urgent introspection and reform across the region to safeguard the judiciary as a true pillar of democracy. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive into one of the most contentious legacies in India's judiciary. Don't forget to like and share Unraveled and subscribe to New Wave Global. Until next time, stay curious and stay critical.